Destiny and I met in, I believe it would have been 2010. I lived in Atlanta at that point and had moved there. That was when the Lord just reworked everything for me. I mean, flipped everything upside down, poured everything that was in out, and knew it was coming in. And that was a season of my life of Jesus finally became something of substance. You know, there was actual exchange, there was relationship, and I was so captivated by what was real, what was being offered to me and received and given. And it was my only pursuit. And so I walked in that for about 2 years of this just captivation of a reality of what I read about in Scripture. You know, it finally had hands and fingers that would touch me and grab me. And so that was my life. I mean, that was my commission. That was my call. That's what I did. And it's the only thing that I wanted or needed. And so I just knew that was it. And that takes me into moving to Missouri. And she had moved in with my mentor at that point and was living in Atlanta, which was where I was at. And then we all moved to Missouri and we joined a discipleship training center. And so both of us are on that same route of Jesus cost me my life and I'm willing to absolutely give it because this is incredible. And that's all that it is. And about a year into that, I was in a room and she had walked in and the Lord immediately grabbed my attention to her, which was completely foreign to me because I don't want attention towards anything but Jesus. So to have it directed towards a girl is like, whoa, like, what is this? And I didn't know what to do with it, but I went and sat with him on it and just, Lord, you got to tell me what's going on because this is not the norm. And in that moment, I heard it. And he said, Hunter, you will be a husband and you will tend. And I was like, whoa. You know? And so I wrestled with that. How do I have affection for anything outside of him? And I couldn't deny that he had told me this, but I couldn't understand it either. And so he was just gentle and he walked with me in it. And that took me for about the next year and a half of just listening. And it was never about a person, but it was about a position. It wasn't, Hunter, I want you to go marry Destiny, so just go run off and have her. It was, Hunter, I'm calling you to tend, and you will tend as I tend you. So you need to understand your covenant with me before I ever allow you covenant with someone else. And so I'm walking in this, an exchange and an example of this is what I have for you and this is what I'm preparing you to have with for another person. So just hang on. And so I walked with him in that. And July 1st of this year, I had spent January through May in Asia. I was living in Indonesia, so didn't see her or anyone else for that season. Lord totally reworked everything about how I even believed him during that time, and came back and was like bringing overseas, life to America. Is just, you just believe different over there. So once you get over here, I'm gonna hit the ground running and what the Lord showed me. And about a month after being back, I had a dream one night, and I was in a room and I was with people that I'm very familiar with. It's a lot of my brothers and sisters that I live with currently, and someone came and sat next to me, and so I looked, and it was her in this dream. And she didn't say anything, but her eyes were really misty, like they were on the verge of tears, but yet there was significant purpose in how she looked at me. And so I just kind of stared at her and just, hey, and she just said, you're my husband. And I woke up, and when I woke up, I've never experienced from the Lord something so physically profound. I mean, you have exchanges in where your flesh is captivated by a spiritual experience, but you can't go off of that because the Lord is the Spirit, and if you trust your emotions, they fleet. But I know in that moment I've never been so overtaken by anything. It's 3 a.m. I'm laying in my bed and my body is resonating with warmth, and I'm trying to figure out what this dream means. And so I clicked on my lamp and wrote it down, and the next morning got up and just read through it and just began asking, okay, this is pretty cut and dry, but I'm gonna ask you anyways, what is this? And the more I would ask him about it, it would be the more fervor he would have in defining it for me. I would ask one question and get 3 answers of him defining, this is what I have, and this is what I'm preparing you for, and this is your assignment. And there was almost an excitement from him on the edge of his seat at what he had in hand for me to walk in. And so I just began listening. It was all that I gave myself to, because it was all that he was talking about. And it was, again, more about the position of walking in covenant, but yet now there was some specificity on the person. And that's different than what I've ever had listening to him on this. And it was amplified in how much he was telling me continually about it. And so I just listened, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote everything he told me. I mean, just journal pages just filling up with, again, covenant and just just how imperative it is. And I brought it to one of my mentors, in fact, a couple of my mentors, just, hey guys, this is what I'm hearing. This is what the Lord is giving me dreams about. Like, I need to bring you in on this, because I got to get this right. This is big. And walked with them in that. And when I told my mentor, I said I had a dream and Destiny told me I was her husband, and he just looked at me and said, you're selfish and you need to prepare yourself and not be afraid of walking in marriage one day. Didn't say anything about the dream. So I was like, no. And so, all right, Lord, what do you, all right. And so he just began stripping off, selfishness and arrogance and pride, and it was humbling, and it was beautiful. And so walked in that for a couple of months, and then, of course, the whole time the question is, as he is expounding and defining her for me, I'm just asking, when do I tell her this? Because I don't know what she's thinking. I have no idea. And so finally the day came where he said, hey, it's time to tell her. So I'm like, what? Tell her everything you've told me for months about how I'm supposed to marry her, and she has no idea. Like, all right, And so we did. I talked with my mentor about it and just said, this is where I'm at. And he said, well, I believe this is where the Lord's at. So let's sit down in my living room, both of y'all, and let's do this. And so it was late one night. It was September 6th. And September 6th isn't really a big deal to us, but if you look on the Hebrew calendar, that would have been the first of Tishri, which is it's the beginning of that month, so it's a new moon festival. It's a new beginning. The Jewish people see it as like a new birthing. But even more significantly than that, that's the night of Rosh Hashanah. That's the new year. It's one of the 7 festivals of the Lord. That night, it was a high holy day because it also landed on a Sabbath. What I thought was just September 6th was the beginning of something significant on his timeline, on his calendar. And so that's the night I sat on a little wooden stool next to her and then my mentor, and just, hey, God told me we're supposed to get married. And listen to her say, well, God's told me that for about the past 4 years. And I mean, at that moment, you're just like, wow, okay. And the only model that I've ever had dating-wise from Scripture has been Adam and Eve, which is pretty significant because it's right out the gate. God creates the world, and then he establishes a covenant between a man and a woman. And Adam needs a suitable helpmate, doesn't have one, and the Lord looks around and says, okay, well, it's time for you to have one. And he puts Adam to sleep. Adam doesn't cruise the garden, on matchmaker.com. He's in the Lord, and he's asleep. And while he is asleep, the Lord fashions the woman, prepares her, he sculpts her, he shapes her so that she is the suitable helpmate for them to walk in perfect covenant. And when he is done perfecting her, he wakes Adam up, and you're there. Everything's prepared, everything's ready. There's no trial and error. There's no, let's try this on and see if it fits. It's, I waited on the Lord, and this is what his hand has given me. It's finished, it's complete, it's ready. And I was given that years ago. Wasn't really ever looking to date, but I said, I'd love to be asleep anyways, just hanging out with you, Lord. So I'll take that. little knowing that that's what was actually actively happening in my life. And so I woke up literally on July 1st of that year from a dream, and that's when the Lord just immediately transformed everything rapidly fast. I thought it was going to take forever, and here I am, 88 days later, about to walk into covenant with the most phenomenal person ever that I was created and crafted for, and I can say that she was the same because I've waited and I've seen, and He showed me this is how He does it. That brings us to getting engaged, which was on the 1st of Kislev, another new moon, another new beginning. Engagement's a huge deal. And then, as I asked again, all right, well, when do we get married? He took me to the 1st of Tevet, which again is another new moon festival. It's a new beginning. Married life it's a new start for both of us. But also the 1st of Tevet is the day of the year that Esther was received by the king. During that time, she had spent the year of preparation, preparing to get ready to go into his presence and see if she was going to be received as his wife. And on the 1st of Tevet, that was when she was approved. She was ready, and it was time. And that'll also be the same day, sundown of tomorrow, that she and I will begin oneness together. So a lot of significance when you work on His timeline, when you wait for Him, when you let Him write the script. It turns out He writes a pretty phenomenal one, And so that's been the journey. Is not what can I create, what can I fashion, what will my emotions steer me towards, but I waited patiently on the Lord, and now I have something. He's given me something supernatural. Both of us.